خل القرآن يسدده خلق القرآن ويرشده يسعى في العلم ويؤثره ويثابر فيه ويسنده أولى حق لا يغفله حق المولى فيوحده ينقاد لشرعة خالقه ليس الشهوات تقيده إن سمع أو رأى كثر أضحى لله تعبده لا يتبع مهيع مبتدع يقف الهادي ويقلده والقلب سليم من مرض يحوي القرآن يمجده يتلو ما يتلو من ذكر يتدبره ويردده.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is Baba Salam and I welcome you to a new episode in the Juz Amma Practical Tajwid series brought to you by TVQ.Academy, your Borderless School of the Qur'an. In today's episode of the Juz Amma Practical Tajwid series, as usual, we will be going through a new surah, and by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have covered all these surahs, including some 6 episodes that were dedicated for the Arabic alphabet. Today we have Surah Al-Shams, and as usual we will be having 3 different components for Surah Al-Shams, and the first will be reading the surah, the second will be highlighting some of the commonly made mistakes when reading Surah Al-Shams, and the final component will be a discussion of a related Tajweed topic which is very relevant to Surah Al-Shams. And today we have the letters of the oral cavity, insha'Allah ta'ala. Now that you are ready, let the excitement begin.
والقلب سليم من مرض يحوي القرآن يمجده يتلو ما يتلو من ذكر يتدبره ويردده.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والشمس وضحاها والقمر إذا تلاها والنهار إذا جلاها والليل إذا يغشاها والسماء وما بناها والأرض وما طحاها ونفس وما سواها فألهمها فجورها وتقواها قد أفلح من زكاها وقد خاب من دساها كذبت ثمود بطغواها إذ انبعث أشقاها فقال لهم رسول الله ناقة الله وسقياها فكذبوه فعقروها فدمدم عليهم ربهم بذنبهم فسواها ولا يخاف عقباها. Let's repeat the surah one more time. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والشمس وضحاها والقمر إذا تلاها والنهار إذا جلاها والليل إذا يغشاها والسماء وما بناها والأرض وما طحاها ونفس وما سواها فألهمها فجورها وتقواها قد أفلح من زكاها وقد خاب من دساها كذبت ثمود بطغواها إذ انبعث أشقاها فقال لهم رسول الله ناقة الله وسقياها فكذبوه فعقروها فدمدم عليهم ربهم بذنبهم فسواها ولا يخاف عقباها.
وإذا الخيرات له سنحت قنص الخيرات تصيده يتواضع لله الأعلى في كل مآل يحمده.
Alright, moving on to highlighting some of the commonly made mistakes in reading Surah Al-Shams, we will say أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Pertaining to some of the commonly made mistakes in reading Al-Isti'adha and Al-Basmala, we have highlighted them in the episode of Surah Al-Fatiha. One may check them out. وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا. We have وَالشَّمْسِ, sh. The shin needs to spread in one's mouth when he articulates it. وَالشَّمْسِ وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا. Alright, over here we have two letters that both come from the throat, but they don't come from this exact same points. We have ha, which comes from the middle of the throat, and therefore we have to compress it to get it right. Ha, ha, ha. And we have ha. Ha comes from the lower part of the throat or lower point of the throat, and we have to relax our throat in order to get it right. Some of the commonly made mistakes pertaining to this is the reader might read both of them the same, either waduhaha or waduhaha, and neither of the two is correct, but the correct is to differentiate, compress the throat to get the ha from the middle of the throat, waduha, and then let go of it after you have extended it to 2 points, waduha, and then you articulate the next one, which will be ha, waduhaha, all right? Washamsi waduhaha, all right? Wal-qamari idha talaha, all right? Over here, waduhaha, how we ended it with 2 points is the same. We will end it with the second verse and all subsequent verses, almost, in fact, all subsequent verses in Surah Al-Shams. So when you say idha talaha, because when you say tala, we have an active letter after it, so it is easy to cover whatever possible mistake is there. So idha talaha, nothing to observe, right? But talaha, some of the commonly made mistakes and very common, in fact, among Qur'an teachers, is that they will close their mouth right away after extending to 2 points. Talaha, وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا جَلَّاهَا وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَاهَا. So at the end of the day, they are actually stopping on meme, unintentionally of course, but most mistakes are unintended, isn't it? So we need to create the awareness, know it, and then avoid them as possible. وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا. After you have applied the 2 points and rested, then you can close your mouth if you want to, or proceed with your next verse. وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا جَلَّاهَا وَاللَّيْلِ, and there you go. Otherwise you will be giving impression of meme, because it can be a real meme there at the end of the day. It can also be a noon, it can be any other silent letter. So this is what we want to avoid. وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا جَلَّاهَا وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَاهَا يَغْشَاهَا. The ghain comes from the upper point of the throat, as we learned in a previous episode, in fact in the episode of Surah Al-Layl, if I'm not wrong. So وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَاهَا, the ghain. So we do not apply qalqala to the ghain. Do not say yaghshaha. وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَاهَا, make it heavy as well. That is tafkhim. Round up your lips in order to get it Otherwise it will be yagha. وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَاهَا وَالسَّمَاءِ وَمَا بَنَاهَا وَالْأَرْضِ. We have dod here, dod, and we have learned the point of articulation of dod in the episode of Surah Al-Sharh. وَالْأَرْضِ. We don't say وَالْأَرْضِ or وَالْأَرْضِ. Dod does not come from here, it comes from here. وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا طَحَاهَا وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا. All right. Over here we have وَنَفْسٍ وَ. We have idgham with ghunna. We have a tanween that is followed by an active waw. وَنَفْسٍ وَ. This tanween has ghunna, and the ghunna comes from our nose, must come from our nasal cavity, and the waw must be produced or articulated from between our lips. Wa. The problem we have, or the commonly made mistake we commit sometimes, is because we want to produce or articulate the waw from between our lips, we move everything, the ghunna and everything, to the lips. And ghunna doesn't come from here. Ghunna comes from here. وَنَفْسٍ. So when I block my nose, the ghunna should stop, because it's only after I have produced enough ghunna for 2 points, then I will move on to the waw, the active waw. وَنَفْسٍ wa. You can still hear the waw even with the nose blocked, because waw doesn't come from the nose. But the ghunna also shouldn't come from here, and when the nose is blocked, the ghunna should also stop. All right? And this is a very common mistake. We should avoid it. We shouldn't say wanafsiu, wanafsiu, siwa. No, wanafsiu. All right? Wanafsiu wa ma sawaha. And this is applicable to idgham bi ghunna and any letter that comes from between the lips. All right? وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا. And in fact, when you have ikhfa, haqiqi also, sometimes we do commit that mistake. Most importantly, whenever we have ghunna must be heard from here. وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا. We have fuju, we have an extended jim. All right? The letter of extension, if there's silent waw here, and therefore it becomes extension. What we have is we have to make sure that the sound, the dhamma sound of the jim, which is extended, is crystal clear and clean, u, and not o or o. All right, so it has to be fu, ju, fu, ju. In order to get that, every dhamma one has to round up his lips, push it forward, fu, or else it will be fo, o, fo. fu, ju. فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا قَدْ أَفْلَحَ. We have over here ha, and we have to make sure that it comes from the middle of the throat and not from the upper or lower points of the throat. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ. Don't say وَقَدْ خَابَ, and don't say وَقَدْ خَابَ. And do not say وَقَدْ خَابَ. وَقَدْ خَابَ. This kha is a heavy letter, and the extension of a letter, especially with fatha, all right, the sound has to follow the characteristic of the letter it extends. So if the letter it extends is a flat letter, then the sound of extension of fatha needs to be the same. In fact, kasra as well as dhamma. And if the letter is a heavy letter, tafkhim mufakham, then the sound of extension needs to also be mufakham. So we have over here qad wa qad khaba. We don't say wa qad khaba or wa qad khawaba. Nor do we say also dassa, then say dassaha. No, dassaha. The same thing applies, right? Wa qad khaba man dassaha. كذبت ثمود بطغواها. We have more than a time emphasize the fact that when we have dhal, whether it is emphasized, stressed upon or not, we need to make sure that it is dhal, and we have talked about the point of articulation of dhal in a previous episode. We can check them out, and we shouldn't say كذبت. ثمود بطغواها. We have a silent ta followed by an active tha. There is no idgham here, so do not say كذبت ثمود in the riwayah of Hafs. كذبت ثمود بطغواها. Remember, ثمود, not ثمو. ثمود بطغواها. We have over here ta and not bita. Don't say كذبت ثمود بتغواها بطا. And the ghain needs no qalqala. Don't say bitagha. Bitagwaha. And then once you apply the silence of the ghain, make sure that you stretch and smile at the waw. Bitagwaha. إذ انبعث أشقاها فقال لهم رسول الله ناقة الله وسقياها. Okay, ناقة الله. Sometimes I often hear some read ناقة الله طله ناقة الله, and also not ناقة الله, ناقة الله. The rules pertaining to the lam of Lafzul Jalala, we have discussed it in Surah 2, in the episode of Surah Al-Ikhlas. One can check it out. ناقة الله وسقياها. In my reading, I stop here. فقال لهم رسول الله ناقة الله وسقياها. In normal reading or in conventional reading, you will hear the verse being linked. There's nothing wrong with either way. If you choose to read the way I read, fine. If you choose to link it as you often hear, also fine. Most importantly, read it right and correct. فَكَذَّبُوهُ. This is another way of stopping as I choose to. فَعَقَرُوهَا. Conventionally, you will hear people saying فَكَذَّبُوهُ فَعَقَرُوهَا. Either way should be okay. فَدَمْدَمَ عَلَيْهِمْ رَبُّهُمْ بِذَنبِهِمْ فَسَوَّاهَا وَلَا يَخَافُ عُقْبَاهَا. With that, we have come to the end of highlighting some of the commonly made mistakes in reading Surah Al-Shams.
أجمل بوفاء شيده وعفاف قل مشيده لا يخطو نحو مذممة شلت عن إجرام يده.
Alright, moving on to discussing the related tajweed topic pertaining to Surah Al-Shams. We have today the letters of the oral cavity, and when you talk about the letters of the oral cavity, we are talking about points of articulation of the Arabic alphabet which are used in reading the Qur'an. In other words, makharij al-huruf or makharijul huruf. In previous episode, we covered the point of articulation of tha and dhal, which both come from the same point in the episode of Surah At-Tin. We also covered the point of articulation of dad as well as dha in the episode of Surah Al-Sharh. Likewise, we highlighted the letters of the throat and how they are articulated and where they are articulated from in the episode of Surah Al-Layl. Today we have the letters of the oral cavity. Alright, so when we say the oral cavity, we are talking about the empty space that stretches from one's chest all the way through the throat and through the mouth. Now there are three letters or three sounds that are articulated or produced from the oral cavity, and these are the extended sound of alif, or an extended alif that comes after any letter with the sound of fatha, or extended ya that comes after any letter with kasra, or extended waw that comes after any letter with the sound of dhamma. And these are letters of extension, and if you have followed us from the beginning, especially in the episodes of the Arabic alphabet, you know what extended letters are, or letters of extension. Now, let's take a look at the first. The first one of the sounds of extension that is produced from the oral cavity is the extended letter of alif that comes after any fatha in the Qur'an. This can be a heavy letter. It can also be a light letter. Heavy letter means a letter with tafkhim. Light letter means the contrary, a letter with tarqiq. And we have a or a. Now, this a and a are written like this. It is written like this in the Quran, and sometimes in classical Arabic it may be written like this. But in Quran, if you see this, you still have to extend it more than 2 points up to 5 points, and sometimes 6 points. And when you take a look, when you want to produce a extended alif, or any letter you want, you can put it here. It can be a, it can be ma, it can be na, it can be ta, it can be qa, it can be ta. It doesn't matter. But the sound does not engage any physical organ inside one's points of articulation. It does not engage any physical organ. So it comes from the oral cavity, from the empty space. And that is why when we want to stop at 8, we do not also engage any letter, no matter how silent that letter is. That's why we are talking about وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا, وَضُحَاهَا. We don't have to say وَضُحَاهَا. Then we are stopping on a meme. And letters that come from the oral cavity, when you want to stop on them, you stop on a silent alif or waw or ya without engaging any active letter, even if that letter is silent. So we have over here, look at the point where, and there is no specific place to engage it, only that your tongue needs to stretch in a way that will make space. Kha. So one must open his mouth. When someone closes his mouth, or it doesn't work. One must open his mouth. Naqatallahi. Alright? So if there is a letter after the extension, it's fine. Washamsi waduhaha. But if there is no letter at the end of it, then one must make sure that he does not engage any silent letter. Washamsi waduhaha. Not waduhaha. Alright? And the next will be E. And one of the extension or sound of extension that is produced from the oral cavity is the extended Ya. That comes after kasra. Any kasra, any letter with kasra. It can be E, it can be Hamza, it can be Ni, it can be Fi, it can be anything as long as it is kasra. And that letter also may be heavy letter, Si. It may be silent letter, it may be a flat letter as well, Fi and whatnot. And again, when you want to produce it, you still have to make space, Fi, and more or less your tongue will stretch to look something like this. Most importantly, make space, and as well, do not close your lips, or else it will come from the nose. All right, and the next will be ooh, ooh. What we want to look at, that's the third sound that comes from the oral cavity, and it is the extended wow that comes after dhamma, and this can only come after dhamma. If it doesn't come after dhamma and if it comes after fatha, it becomes aw, maw, qaw, and that is not letter of extension. It's a silent wow instead. All right. So here we're talking about extension. So we have u, mu, fu. فَقَالَ لَهُمْ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ رَسُولُ. Ooh. Look at this. Look at the lips. You need to engage your lip likewise when you want to apply an extension of dhamma. Ooh. فَقَالَ لَهُمْ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ فُجُورَهَا. Fu. Juraha. And your lips must be seen like this in front, and it must be seen like this from the side. All right, and this is how you get it right, especially if you want it to be clear, clean dhamma. All right, so these are the three sounds that are produced from our nasal cavity: a, ma, na, qa, ra, sa, da, and then e, mi, fi, li, qi, and then u, mu, fu, nu, su, and what not. All right, it does not engage any physical organ in one's body, but you need to open your mouth, you need to make space inside, and you are good to go. If not, it will force itself through your nose. No, please. One should open his mouth. And sometimes when we are tired, this may happen. When we are tired, this may happen, and it may not sound clean and clear. Now let's take a look at Surah Al-Shams once again and see how we can apply what we have learned so far in the relevant tajweed topic. We have Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. We have Bismillahi, la Allahi, il Bismillahi. This is a letter or a sound that comes from the oral cavity. Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. This all come from our oral cavity. Wash-shamsi wa-duhaha. Of course, every word, everything has tajweed rule, but the most relevant in today is what I'm singling out and highlighting. وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا جَلَّاهَا وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا. So you see, this is Ya, but does not apply because it is silent and not extension. Why? How do we know it is silent and not extension? Because the letter before it is active with a letter or a sound that is fatha and not kasra. So if it was li, then it applies. But it is not li, it is layli. Wal-layli idha is applicable. Yaghsha applicable. Ha. Was-sama, this also applicable. Even if we extended it to 5 points. Was-samaa'i wa ma banaha wal-ardi wa ma tahaha. Make sure when you stop, you don't right away close your lips, collide your lips, or else it will sound meme. Tahaha. No. Tahaha. Give the impression that you have ended the sound. Then feel free to close your mouth. وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. Alright? وَقَدْ خَاءَ. So why is this uniquely different from all the ha and whatnot? Because it follows the characteristic of the letter. It is extending, and the characteristic of this letter is heavy. وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا كَذَّبَتْ ثَمُودُ بِطَغْوَاهَا إِذِ انبَعَثَ أَشْقَاهَا فقال لهم رسول الله ناقة الله. Alright? ناقة الله وسقياها فكذبوه. I stop here and I'm giving impression that there is a letter which I need to apply silence on. فكذبوه. What letter is that? Is ha. I'm not just breathing. I'm producing a letter which is applicable. فكذبوه. Ha. If the ha didn't exist, then I would have said فكذبوا. Stop. Not فكذبوا. فكذبوه. فعقروها فدمدم عليهم ربهم بذنبهم فسواها ولا يخاف عقباها. Alright, these are the 3 sounds that are produced from one's oral cavity. This is another reading to reinforce everything we have learned in Surah Al-Shams. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والشمس وضحاها والقمر إذا تلاها والنهار إذا جلاها والليل إذا يغشاها والسماء وما بناها والأرض وما طحاها ونفس وما سواها فألهمها فجورها وتقواها قد أفلح من زكاها وقد خاب من دساها كذبت ثمود بطغواها إذ انبعث أشقاها فقال لهم رسول الله ناقة الله وسقياها فكذبوه فعقروها فدمدم عليهم ربهم بذنبهم فسواها ولا يخاف عقباها. With that, we have come to the end of this episode of the Juz Amma Practical Tajweed series, brought to you by TVQ.Academy, your borderless school of the Qur'an. Until our next episode, I leave you in Allah's protection. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
هذا الوهاب سيكرمه وبرحمته يتغمده ويذيع الله له ذكرا وإلى الآباد يخلده. هذا مني وأنا منه وفضائله ستسوده. طابت في الدنيا عيشته وعوالي الجنة موعده. طابت في الدنيا عيشته وعوالي الجنة موعده.